Upon graduation from West Point in the top 10% of his class, Major Ben Richards was treated as a top Army officer. This is his testimony of the effects of combat on his family and his life.
You serve individuals with weapons. You are clear to fire.
Now, that last attack in Iraq happened in Bakuba. This is one of the most dangerous regions in Iraq still.
In March of 2007, my cavalry troop of 100 soldiers and 17 Stryker armored vehicles deployed to Bakuba, Iraq. This city of 300,000 people was completely controlled by Al-Qaeda. We went through months of intense combat where firefights and IED strikes were a daily occurrence. On May 13th, a sedan laden with hundreds of pounds of explosives and driven by a suicide bomber detonated against my Stryker. My crew and I all received traumatic brain injuries. The following September, we returned home to Fort Lewis, in one piece, but not entirely whole. It was like a part of me was still missing. I was experiencing daily pain, debilitating headaches, chronic fatigue, emotional numbness, irritability, emotional instability. Cognitively, I had problems with memory and executive functioning. I couldn't multitask, and tasks that had been simple before were overwhelming. I was screened for traumatic brain injury. The tests were superficial, and the Army ruled that I did not have a traumatic brain injury. All of my problems were due to post-traumatic stress. A few months later, the Army sent me to Georgetown University to pursue a master's degree. Despite my previous academic performance, the work was overwhelming, and by the end of the first year, I was directed to withdraw from classes due to academic deficiencies. I did my best to complete my duties, but the burdens of my invisible injuries became too much, and eventually I broke. But it wasn't just me that was suffering. My wife and children were also paying the price for my service to the nation. The Army sent me to the National Intrepid Center of Excellence in Bethesda, Maryland, where I was evaluated and treated for traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. The Army also initiated a medical evaluation board, which led to my retirement a little more than a year later. At the time of my retirement in August 2012, I had been provided with the best treatment and care available for traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress injuries, but it was not enough. The promise of a new normal increasingly felt like a lie. I felt like a failure. I felt hopeless.
All right. Good morning. Your name is?
Ben Richards.
And how old are you?
36.
Okay. And you're here because of what?
Traumatic brain injury. Shortly after I retired, I was referred to Dr. Paul Harch in New Orleans for hyperbaric oxygen therapy for my traumatic brain injury. After 30 days, I began to notice substantial improvement. After 40 treatments, I returned home where my teenage daughter proclaimed me healed.
This is a picture of Ben's brain. The holes are areas of significant reduction in blood flow that are a result of the traumatic brain injuries that Ben experienced. And you can see them here in the front. They're also the areas that are typically injured in traumatic brain injury. This is Ben's brain scan after hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And what you see is an improvement in blood flow to the damaged areas of brain that previously were holes. The meaning of this is that it's objective evidence, proof that explains the hyperbaric oxygen therapy was responsible for the improvement in symptoms, physical exam, cognition, and quality of life that Ben is now experiencing. What's more important is that Ben is not the exception, he's the rule. He is the 150th or so patient with chronic traumatic brain injury I've treated in the last 24 years perfecting this protocol. Nearly every one of them have experienced significant improvement like Ben. What it says is that hyperbaric oxygen therapy works for chronic traumatic brain injury. What is even more important is that it says that the hundreds of thousands of additional veterans with traumatic brain injury can also improve like Ben Richards, and many more millions worldwide with chronic traumatic brain injury.
I've now completed 80 treatments. I feel the best that I've felt in 6 years. I've seen further improvement in every aspect of my injuries. I'm beginning to feel hope again and feel like Ben Richards has finally come home. I will never leave a fallen comrade, yet thousands of fallen soldiers live among us today, their lives destroyed by the invisible wounds of traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress injury. I was one of those broken soldiers, but thanks to hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I'm getting my life back.